Everyone knows the 1929 crash destroyed America, but almost no one knows that a small group of insiders spent those same weeks getting richer, and the smartest of them did it by betting against the very things they were publicly trying to save. This video is about the people who didn't lose money in 1929 and the exact moves they made while everyone else panicked. Let us start by killing the myth. We are always told the crash wiped out America, but it did not. Most Americans never lost a dime, for the simple reason that most of them owned no stock at all. In 1929, fewer than 2.5% of the population even had a brokerage account, and the everyone who supposedly got destroyed was barely a tenth of households. So while the country swallowed a story about a nation losing everything, a handful of men sat in the middle of the panic, perfectly calm, taking money instead of losing it, and here is exactly how they did it. Albert Wiggin. We start with the best one, because it sets the tone for everything else. On October 24, 1929, the day history remembers as Black Thursday, the market is coming apart, and the most powerful bankers in America gather at 23 Wall Street, the House of Morgan, to pool their money and stop the bleeding. One of them is Albert Wiggin, who runs Chase National Bank, at the time one of the largest banks in the world, and he is there as a savior. There is just one detail he forgot to mention, which is that he was betting against his own bank. While Wiggin sat there playing hero, he had spent that fall short selling the stock of Chase National Bank, the institution he ran, dumping over 42,000 shares into the bet. And here's the part that earns him a place in this video. He routed it through a shell company in Canada, which meant that when he collected his winnings of around $4 million, he paid no tax on a single cent. Think about what he engineered. If the market recovers, he's the banker who saved Wall Street, and if it collapses, he cashes in on the destruction of his own company, a bet he could not lose, with his own bank as the thing he was betting against. When investigators later untangled it, the Senate's own counsel, Ferdinand Pecora, said it was doubtful there was another executive who so thoroughly used his official positions for private profit. And the real punchline is this: Congress was so disturbed that they wrote a rule specifically to ban it. A provision in the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 to stop an insider from shorting his own stock. People in finance still call it the Wiggin provision, which is the rare distinction of being so good at a loophole that they name the law after you when they close it. Jesse Livermore. Wiggin had an inside position. Our next man had something else, which was nerve and a plan to stay invisible. His name was Jesse Livermore, and the press called him the Great Bear of Wall Street. He did not run a bank, he was a speculator, and where Wiggin bet against one company, Livermore bet against the entire market. The problem with being a famous trader, making an enormous bet, is that the moment word gets out that the Great Bear is shorting, everyone follows you, the market moves against you, and your own reputation becomes a liability. So Livermore did something clever. To hide the sheer size of what he was doing, in 1929, he reportedly spread his bets across more than 100 different brokers, so no single broker could see the whole picture. He turned himself into 100 small, unremarkable traders instead of one giant target. When the crash came, the bet paid off on a scale that is hard to imagine, because Livermore reportedly walked away from the crash in 1929 with around $100 million. This is where I would love to tell you he rode off into the sunset, but he did not, because the same nerve that let him make that fortune also let him lose it. Within a few years, the man who had perfectly timed the greatest crash in history was bankrupt, declaring bankruptcy in 1934, and he died by suicide in 1940. Being right once, even spectacularly, is not the same as being safe. The crash did not destroy him. What destroyed him was believing he could do it again. Joseph Kennedy, which brings us to the man who understood that better than anyone, because he got out, and then he stayed out. Joseph P. Kennedy, the father of a future president, was before any of that, a man who saw 1929 coming and positioned himself perfectly. There is a famous story about how he knew. The legend goes that Kennedy was getting his shoes shined. The shoeshine boy started giving him stock tips, and Kennedy figured that if a shoeshine boy is handing out market advice, the market is insane and it is time to get out. Great story, and probably not true. The best anecdotes get borrowed, and that shoeshine line has no source from the actual time, first showing up in a book in 1965, decades later, after the exact same story had already been told about the financier Bernard Baruch. So enjoy it, but do not believe it. What is real is what Kennedy actually did. He got out before the worst of it. He shorted stocks on the way down, and then, while everyone else was paralyzed, he went shopping, buying up distressed assets, reorganizing Hollywood film companies, and once Prohibition was repealed, in 1933, importing liquor into a country that had been thirsty for 13 years. The numbers tell the story. Around the crash, his fortune was roughly $4 million, and by 1935, it was estimated near $180 million. The crash did not shrink his wealth, it multiplied it by more than 40 times. And then comes the twist. In 1934, the government created the Securities and Exchange Commission, the agency built to police exactly the kind of manipulation we have been describing, and the man they appointed as its very first chairman was Joseph P. Kennedy. They put the speculator in charge of the speculation police, and the reasoning at the time, reportedly, was blunt. It takes a thief to catch a thief. That's the blueprint, and notice it was never really one trick, it was a mindset. Wiggin profited by betting against the thing he was sworn to protect. Livermore profited by making himself invisible, and Kennedy profited by getting out early and then buying the wreckage. The pattern ran deeper than these three. The same Black Thursday rescue that made banker Richard Whitney a celebrated hero ended with him in Sing Sing prison for embezzlement by 1938, and even John D. Rockefeller's famous public promise that he and his son were buying stocks turned out to be a confidence play scripted by his publicist. Which loops us right back to where we started. We are told 1929 was the year America lost everything, but most of America had nothing in the market to lose. The people who actually had money in the game and information and nerve, a good number of them did not get poorer, they got richer. That is the part the myth leaves out, because a crash does not destroy wealth so much as move it, and in 1929 it moved toward the small number of people calm enough and connected enough to be standing where it landed. The cover story is that everyone lost, but the truth is that someone was always on the other side of the trade.